What's up, guys? Ben here, bringing you another video today. It is Thursday morning, and I wanted to make, before my Pick'ems video comes out for this week, I wanted to make a video kind of breaking down a lot of news about the Esports World Cup Call of Duty event. It's been much rumor. We've been talking about it for a year. It finally got announced yesterday. Let's talk about the dates. Let's talk about the format. Let's talk about what we know. Let's talk about what we don't know. And some questions we're going to need to get answered very soon because there's actually a deadline, believe it or not, coming up in the next 2 weeks for teams participating at the event. All right, so here we go. Announced yesterday. There's also a Warzone event as well. It's going to happen in July, and the format for that is interesting, but I'll talk about that more on my stream. Let's talk about the format for this event. So it'll be taking place on the 15th to 18th of August. So it's about a month after champs, and the prize pool is going to be $1.8 million. So you can see the breakdown if I go over to the next slide. There is a lot of money on offer here. First place, $150K each for winners. And even if you just show up and don't win a match, you get 5 racks. And I assume, by the way, that like travel and expenses are always going to be covered for teams that are going or qualify in. So, I mean, even if you just get in and you make 5 grand for like 1 day of work, I mean, that's probably pretty good. I would say my last thought on this prize pool is this is a little bit of a flatter payout than we normally see. You're usually looking, you know, in the 40% for first place as far as overall prize pool. So 60 ends up being about a third. So it's a little bit more flatter, but I still think, again, I still think this is probably a decent haul for players. It really kind of rewards and gives good money to people that kind of show up and play okay. So this is why I think a lot of players are going to want to go, because even if you're not thinking you're going to beat an Atlanta FaZe and OPTIC or Toronto, Fit 6 here plays out pretty handsomely, like 20 grand. And obviously you got to pay taxes on that, you know, foreign money that you're gonna be making in Riyadh, you're gonna bring it back to the US, whatever. Tax, either way, it's good income for a lot of these players. All right, so format is interesting here. So this is a little bit similar to some formats we've seen in the past in other shooter esports. We've seen similar formats in COD Mobile. So this is how it's going to go down. The 16 teams are going to be participating in the event. We'll get to it in a second. What we know about what 16 teams are going. It's going to be 4 groups of 4 teams. So 4 groups of 4 and double elimination best of 5. So this is GSL groups. We had this format in Raw. You got to win 2 before you lose 2. It's basically just a giant double elimination bracket, and the team that wins that winner's final and the loser's final, the little mini double bracket, go through. And then you're going to have 8 teams play a single elimination best of 5 tournament with the best of 7 final. I'm actually not a fan really of this. I think I understand kind of the desire maybe a little bit for, you know, a single limb tournament, especially with a 3-day, maybe a single stage type deal. But I do think if you're gonna do single limb, let's do best of 7 and the best of 9 final. I think that would be sort of the better play for me. So that's my biggest critique about this format. And I hopefully wish they could change it by the time the event happens, but I'm going to assume that this is what we're locked into at the moment. All right, and so the last piece of information that we know at the moment for teams that are going to be participating at the tournament, which again, we don't know who they are, I'll get to that in a second. They have to sign new participants by, looks like midnight Saudi time on Thursday, the 27th of June. So that is actually like literally the day before Major 4. So you get in a weird situation with teams where they're kind of roster locked after Major 4. So you're not probably going to see crazy rosters for this event for teams that are invited. Maybe teams that qualify might have some funky new rosters, but we need a little bit more clarity on this because this one just came out right before I record this video, and a bit of an interesting deadline. It's coming up in 2 weeks. So, all right. So we don't know of the 16 teams how it's going to break down, who is invited, who is qualified. Before we get into rumors, because a lot of rumors flying around on Twitter, and I think this is based on information that had kind of surfaced in early spring, late winter, and it's not really, I think a lot of people aren't really sure if it's true or not. That was my sense from kind of text yesterday. I want to highlight just coming in here that there are a couple of teams I think we could take a guess that are going to be invited, because the Esports World Cup was a little bit of a misleading name in the sense of, if you are a soccer fan, you might think, oh, this is sort of like national teams. You got USA versus Brazil, whatever. This is actually a club World Cup kind of championships. So you have these teams that are have applied and are going to participate in the club support program. And these are teams that are getting a stipend, basically getting a grant to be able to participate. And the reason they're doing that is because they have this sort of club world championship kind of function to this whole thing. There are a lot of different games competing at Esports World Cup, and for these organizations, they want them to field as many teams as possible, and then they get points, and then like the winning org gets like $7 million. So it's like a lot of money for these orgs on the side. But anyway, there are a lot of orgs on here that have CDL teams, and we'll go through the list. FaZe Clan, I mean, that one's obvious, ATL FaZe. G2 do own the Minnesota Rocker. Good chance we'll see Rocker at this tournament. KOI is in the same sort of parent company situation as a Toronto Ultra, so that'll be a little bit interesting if the Ultra guys got to play under KOI, but that's where I think Ultra would participate. And then you got 100 Thieves, which would likely encompass the LA Thieves team. I think also ultimately Team Falcons is also a team to watch here. Will they bring in the roster they currently have that is grinding in EU challengers like King and Body in them, or are they going to bring in someone else? But I think the interesting part of this list too is there are a bunch of orgs that have been in COD in the past and may, depending on how sort of the invitation qualifier works, pick up some teams like a C9. I could see it. Gen G's been in COD in the past. TSM have been in COD in the past. SSG have said that they are interested. Liquid has been in COD before. Vitality, old school Call of Duty org, and obviously NRG was part of the whole Chicago Huntsman thing for about a year or so. So there's a lot of really interesting orgs on this list, some that already have CDL teams. So the rumor right now is this, that there are going to be 12 invited teams and 4 teams qualifying in. But there is no, from what I've asked around, no one seems to know or seems to know what an announcement is going to be about who is invited and how the qualifiers are going to work. Are they going to be online? Are they going to be on LAN? Are all 12 invited teams going to be CDL teams? Are there going to be some non-CDL invited teams? There's a lot, unfortunately, that we don't know about this tournament. Schedule, how many stages, where you're going to be able to watch, you know, are there going to be any map or modes adjustments? We don't know that. And we also don't know what teams are going to be participating at this one. I would say, you know, a lot of questions are like, do you expect all top 4 teams to participate? I would think so. Subliners is a little bit of a weird one because they're not a partner org. And on top of the fact that Paco Hydra is going to be a free agent, that creates a whole situation. We'll get to it in a second. But I expect like OPTIC, that's probably the big question everybody has. Is OPTIC going to participate? I think OPTIC will probably go this one. I would guess most CDL teams, most top CDL players. And so the last piece I want to talk about, because again, we just don't have a lot of information, is, you know, I was having a conversation on Twitter with JK about this, where now with this roster deadline of June 27th, for teams to finalize rosters for the event. I don't know like how this off season's now going to work. Like what happens to these bottom teams if they want to make a change? This is like a weird situation that we haven't had since like, oh man, like PAX East Invitational is a weird event way in the past, and like Ghosts that had sort of a similar issue to this. Like, are teams going to make changes and then play with their old roster? Or are they just going to stick with their old roster to the end of August and then make changes? How does people picking up people's options going to work? How are like pre-agreements going to work? Because then, you know, you might get a situation where, let's talk about Hydra, right? Let's say Hydra is then forced to play with his New York Subliner teammates, but is destined to go to OPTIC in the offseason. OPTIC's going to want to negotiate with him at the beginning of that period when it starts, which is going to be like 2 weeks after Champs, but then he'll still be on New York Subliners on a short-term contract because of this tournament. It is very confusing, and unfortunately, we don't have a lot of details. I'm going to try and get to the bottom of this over the course of a day or so, so I might have an updated video once that I can kind of get a sense of what's going on here. You know, at this point, and kind of to summarize my thoughts, like we have the format of the event, we know the dates, we know the prize pool, and that's basically all we know at this point. And there are a lot of technical questions, there are a lot of specific questions that we still don't have about the event. And I think the final thing I will leave you with is that you're probably wondering, is like the Flank gonna go? Probably. I'll keep you guys posted on that. I don't think Tommy is gonna be able to go. He has a wedding that weekend. Kind of unfortunate that this date lines up with the wedding he has to go to, but you'll probably see the usual crew there, or maybe Tommy will join us remotely. Maybe I had to figure out hologram technology to go ahead and get him involved. I don't know. We're gonna have to dive in on that, but more coming soon on this really interesting tournament we're getting during the off season. For a lot of money. So let me know in the comments what you guys thought of the video. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more. And as always, guys, we'll see you on the next one.